1. What if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the way you think? 2. Have you ever wondered how many dreams die silently because action was never taken? 3. What's the cost of surrendering to fear instead of trusting your purpose? 4. How many opportunities have you ignored, thinking you weren't good enough? 5. Are you living a life shaped by belief or by doubt? 6. What would change in your world if you chose persistence over comfort every single day? Let's go back to the first question. What if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the way you think? You see, every extraordinary life begins with a shift in mindset. It's not the resources, the education, or even the circumstances. It's the belief system. The moment you begin to believe that wealth, growth, transformation, and purpose are not reserved for others but are within your reach, something powerful awakens. A true millionaire doesn't just collect wealth. They collect powerful thoughts, disciplined actions, and unshakable vision. Thinking differently is not a luxury. It's the foundation of everything. And the second question, have you ever wondered how many dreams die silently because action was never taken? This one cuts deep because so many people carry golden visions in their hearts, but they never act. Fear silences them. Doubt delays them. And time simply passes by. But action, real, committed, relentless action is what separates the dreamer from the doer. The world doesn't reward ideas. It rewards boldness. Every time you move forward, despite fear, you leave the average behind and step into transformation. The path to success was never about having it easy. It's about having a reason, a purpose so compelling that nothing, not fear, not failure, not fatigue, can keep you from showing up. Purpose ignites persistence, and persistence builds unshakable confidence. Confidence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from progress, from falling 7 times and standing up 8, from choosing growth over excuses, from facing the mirror and saying, I am not where I want to be, but I'm not staying here. This journey is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming fully yourself, fearless, focused, and free. True wealth starts inside. When your belief aligns with your actions, when your thoughts reflect your worth, and when your persistence speaks louder than your doubts, you become unstoppable. You don't have to wait to become a millionaire to think like one. But you must think and act like one long before the world sees it. Because success isn't a result, it's a reflection. What if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the way you think? This question sounds simple, but it holds the power to shift the entire direction of your life. Most people believe their limitations are outside of them. Circumstances, background, lack of resources, bad timing. But what if none of that is the real issue? What if the true obstacle isn't the world around you, but the world within you? The mind is the origin of every breakthrough and every breakdown. The way you interpret your reality, the beliefs you carry about who you are and what you're capable of, these mental patterns create the blueprint for your life. Your thoughts shape your choices shape your habits, and your habits create your future. So if your thinking is small, reactive, filled with doubt, or rooted in fear, then no matter how big your dreams are, you will sabotage your own success. You will shrink yourself to fit the limits of your thoughts. But when you begin to think like a true millionaire, when your mindset is expansive, focused, confident, and aligned with purpose, everything starts to change. True millionaires don't wait for permission. They don't look for guarantees. They believe in vision. They believe in creating opportunities. They don't see failure as the end. They see it as feedback. They operate from a place of inner authority, not outer validation. That's a mindset, not a bank balance. The life you desire isn't out of reach. It's only out of alignment. It waits on the other side of fear-based thinking, on the other side of self-doubt, on the other side of conditioned beliefs that whisper, "You're not enough." But the moment you question those beliefs, the moment you challenge them, you begin to take back your power. You begin to rewrite the story you've been living in. Imagine what would happen if you replaced every "I can't" with "What if I could?" What if every challenge became a lesson, not a label? What if your circumstances weren't limitations, but invitations to grow, to rise, to become? The transformation doesn't start when the world changes. It starts when your mind does. You have ideas inside you that could change lives. You have potential that hasn't even been touched yet. But potential without belief is a locked door. Your thinking is the key. The way you think determines the way you feel. The way you feel determines how you act. And how you act determines everything you create. So ask yourself again, what if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the way you think? Are you willing to challenge your own beliefs? Are you willing to train your mind like a true millionaire, focused, intentional, persistent? Because when you do, life begins to meet you at the level of your thoughts. That's not philosophy, that's power, and that power has always been yours. Have you ever wondered how many dreams die silently because action was never taken? It's a haunting thought, one that echoes in the hearts of those who once felt a fire within, but allowed it to fade. Dreams are fragile. They are born in moments of inspiration, hope, and clarity. But without action, they wither. Without movement, they dissolve into regrets. The saddest part is not that dreams are hard to reach. It's that so many people never even try. They keep waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect confidence. And in that waiting, the dream slowly dies. Think about it. How many ideas have you had that felt powerful, right, even life-changing? How many times did your heart whisper, "This is it"? And then fear whispered louder, "What if you fail?" So you paused, you hesitated, you told yourself, "Maybe later," or "I'm not ready yet." And later never came. Readiness never arrived. What you didn't realize is that the dream didn't need you to be perfect. It just needed you to begin. There are people walking this earth carrying dreams that could have transformed industries, touched lives, reshaped communities, but no one will ever see them. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they were never brought into the world. The bridge between vision and reality is action, and every step you don't take is a step further from what could have been. We often fear failure, rejection, or judgment, but what if the greater tragedy is not failing? It's never beginning. What if the cost of inaction is far greater than the risk of trying and stumbling? Because at least when you try, you learn, you grow, you evolve. But when you do nothing, you remain stuck, trapped in a cycle of what-ifs and silent frustration. The truth is, no one ever feels fully ready. No one has all the answers at the start. But action creates clarity. Movement builds momentum. The first step is often the hardest, not because it's physically difficult, but because it requires you to face your own doubt. Yet once that step is taken, something incredible happens. Fear begins to shrink, confidence begins to rise, and the dream that once felt distant starts to feel real. You don't need to leap 1,000 miles. You just need to move an inch in the direction of your purpose. That inch taken daily becomes a mile. That mile becomes progress. That progress becomes transformation. Action is the proof of belief. If you truly believe in something, your purpose, your vision, your future, you must act on it. Otherwise, belief remains an illusion. So ask yourself, how many of your own dreams are you quietly burying under delay, distraction, or doubt? And what would happen if you stopped waiting and started creating? The world doesn't need more silent dreamers. It needs courageous doers. Take the step, speak the idea, build the vision, not tomorrow, now, because every second you hesitate, another dream fades, and every second you act, another piece of your destiny comes alive. What's the cost of surrendering to fear instead of trusting your purpose? It's a question that reaches into the deepest part of your soul, because the cost isn't always obvious at first. It's subtle. It hides in the choices you don't make, the paths you don't take, and the voice inside you that grows quieter every time you ignore it. Surrendering to fear doesn't look dramatic. It often looks like comfort, like playing it safe, like staying quiet when you were meant to speak, or staying still when you were born to move. But over time, the cost is heavy. It's the weight of an unlived life. Fear is convincing. It tells you stories that sound like truth. You're not ready. You'll fail. No one will understand. It makes the worst case scenario feel like the only possible outcome. And because fear is loud, we often forget that purpose has a voice too. It may be quieter, but it's steady. It's the feeling you get when you imagine a life bigger than what you're living. It's the dream that won't leave you alone. It's the knowing that you are made for more. When you choose fear over purpose, you give away your power. You hand over your potential to something that only exists in your mind. You trade growth for safety, destiny for doubt. And while fear keeps you where you are, purpose is always pulling you forward. Purpose asks you to believe in something beyond your current reality. It asks for trust, not in guarantees, but in possibility. It requires faith, not that everything will be easy, but that everything will be worth it. The cost of surrendering to fear is missing the person you could have become. It's waking up years from now with the sinking feeling that you lived small, not because you were small, but because you let fear convince you that you were. It's not just lost opportunities. It's lost time, lost impact, lost joy. And the most painful part? You'll never know how far you could have gone because you never truly tried. But when you trust your purpose, even in the presence of fear, something shifts. You stop waiting to feel ready and you start becoming ready through action. You stop needing approval and start listening to your inner authority. You step into discomfort not because you enjoy it, but because you recognize it as the birthplace of growth. Trusting your purpose doesn't mean fear disappears. It means you no longer serve it. You acknowledge it, but you move anyway. You act anyway. You believe anyway. Your purpose is not random. It's not an accident. It was placed inside you for a reason, and it carries with it the energy to transform not just your life, but the lives of others. Every time you trust it, you ignite something powerful. You awaken courage. You build resilience. You create momentum. And step by step, you step into a life that is rich with meaning, direction, and fulfillment. So, what's the cost of surrendering to fear? Everything. But the reward of trusting your purpose? That's freedom. That's legacy. That's life fully lived. How many opportunities have you ignored thinking you weren't good enough? The question stings because deep down, you know there have been moments, possibly many, where something inside you whispered, "Go for it," but the louder voice said, "You can't." That voice, fueled by doubt and insecurity, has stopped more dreams than failure ever has. It's the voice that measures your worth by your mistakes, your past, or the opinions of others. It doesn't just hold you back. It convinces you that you were never meant to move forward. Opportunities rarely come wrapped in certainty. They don't arrive when you feel perfectly prepared or fully confident. They often show up when you're still figuring things out, still questioning yourself, still wondering if you really belong. And in those moments, your belief in yourself becomes the deciding factor. When you don't feel good enough, you'll pass on chances that were made for you, not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't believe you were. Think about how many doors you didn't knock on, how many hands you didn't raise, how many dreams you let drift away, all because of one lie: I'm not enough. This lie is subtle. It disguises itself as logic, humility, or realism. But make no mistake, it is fear. And the danger of living by that belief is that your life starts shrinking to match your insecurities. You stop reaching. You stop stretching. You settle for less, not because it's what you want, but because it feels safer than risking rejection. But the truth is, you don't have to feel good enough to be good enough. Worth is not something you earn. It's something you own. The world is filled with people who had less talent, less experience, and fewer resources, but they chose to act. They chose to believe that even if they weren't perfect, they were still possible. They stepped into rooms they felt unqualified for. They took opportunities they didn't feel ready for. And in doing so, they grew into the people those opportunities required them to be. Every opportunity carries a message. You are being called higher. It doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. It means you have to say yes and figure it out along the way. Growth doesn't happen before the leap. It happens because of it. When you say yes to opportunities, even while feeling unsure, you send a message to yourself: I believe in my potential more than my fear. You'll never know how many breakthroughs you missed simply because you said no to yourself. But it's never too late to start saying yes. Yes to learning. Yes to showing up. Yes to being seen. You are more ready than you think. You are more worthy than you feel. And if you start walking toward what scares you, you'll discover that the only thing standing between you and those opportunities was a belief that no longer serves you. So ask yourself again, how many opportunities have you ignored thinking you weren't good enough? And more importantly, how many more will you say yes to now that you know you are? Are you living a life shaped by belief or by doubt? It's a powerful question, one that can reveal more about your reality than you might expect. Because whether you realize it or not, everything you do or don't do is guided by what you believe to be true about yourself, your potential, and the world around you. Every decision, every risk, every hesitation is rooted in either belief or doubt. And the life you're living right now is the result of which one has been in control. Belief is expansive. It stretches your vision, opens doors, and fuels your courage. When you live from a place of belief, you trust in possibility. You might not have all the answers, but you know that growth is available, that progress is possible, and that you have what it takes to overcome what stands in your way. Belief gives birth to action. It gives you permission to move forward even when things are uncertain. It lets you bet on yourself. And when you do, life responds with opportunity. But when doubt takes the lead, the opposite happens. Doubt is restrictive. It narrows your view, magnifies your flaws, and convinces you that taking a step forward is dangerous. It causes you to second-guess your intuition, your skills, even your dreams. Doubt tells you stories like, what if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if they reject me? And those stories become cages. They trap your potential in the realm of hesitation, where nothing grows except regret. The scary thing about doubt is that it can feel rational. It disguises itself as logic, caution, or realism, but underneath it all, it's fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of standing out. And if you let that fear drive your choices, you will live a life of constant compromise. You'll aim lower, dream smaller, and settle for less, not because that's what you wanted, but because you let doubt decide for you. Living a life shaped by belief doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you don't let fear make your choices. It means you learn to trust your inner voice more than the noise around you. You choose to act not because you're certain of the outcome, but because you're certain that growth is on the other side of action. Belief isn't a guarantee of success, but it is the foundation of progress. Without it, nothing begins. The truth is, you are constantly being pulled in two directions. Belief or doubt, courage or fear, expansion or limitation. One leads to the life you dream about. The other keeps you stuck in the one you've outgrown. You have to choose. And every day, through your thoughts, your words, and your actions, you are choosing. So ask yourself honestly, are you living a life shaped by belief or by doubt? Because belief builds bridges to the future. Doubt builds walls around the present. If you want to rise, to grow, to evolve, you must believe. Not because the path is easy, but because you were never meant to play small. And the moment you choose belief, you begin to shape a life that reflects the greatness already inside you. What would change in your world if you chose persistence over comfort every single day? Imagine the version of yourself who doesn't stop when things get hard, who doesn't retreat when things get uncomfortable, and who doesn't wait for motivation but moves with purpose, relentlessly. That version of you exists. It's not a fantasy. It's a decision away. The gap between the life you're living and the life you're capable of living is often filled with one word: persistent. Comfort feels good in the moment. It's easy. It's familiar. It asks nothing of you. But it also gives you nothing in return. Comfort protects your current identity, but it suffocates your growth. And the truth is, every time you choose comfort over challenge, you reinforce the belief that you're not strong enough to face the hard things. You tell yourself, it's okay to stop here, when deep down, you know you were made to go further. Persistence, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. It demands more from you than you think you have. It doesn't guarantee instant results. It often requires you to keep going long after the excitement has faded, after the applause has stopped, and after the doubts start to scream. But persistence shapes you. It stretches your capacity. It builds resilience, grit, and discipline, the ingredients of transformation. When you choose persistence over comfort, everything changes. Your self-worth starts to rise, not because someone approved of you, but because you proved something to yourself. You see what you're capable of, not in ideal conditions, but in pressure, in pain, and in uncertainty. And that's when true confidence is born, not from success alone, but from the struggle it took to get there. Success isn't about talent or luck nearly as much as it's about endurance. The ones who win are the ones who don't quit. They face the same setbacks, the same fears, the same failures, but they persist. They stay with the process. They rise again after every fall, and in doing so, they carve out a life that others only dream about. Think about what you're working toward right now. Think about the goal you've been holding in your heart. Now ask yourself, how often do you give up when it gets hard? How often do you retreat into comfort when you should press into challenge? And what if instead you trained yourself to push one step further every single day? Not once in a while, every day, even when you're tired. Even when you're discouraged, even when no one is watching. That's the difference maker. That's what separates dreamers from achievers. It's not just vision, it's consistency. It's the daily decision to rise instead of rest, to push instead of pause, to keep showing up when nothing seems to be working. Because eventually things will work, not because the path got easier, but because you got stronger. So what would change in your world if you chose persistence over comfort? Everything. Your mindset, your results, your life. You would evolve into someone you barely recognize. Someone who doesn't just wish for more, but fights for it and wins. Not by chance, but by choice. Every single day. Here is a powerful conclusion that ties together the entire speech built around belief, mindset, fear, action, purpose, persistence, and growth. The life you long for is not found in distant dreams. It's built in daily decisions. Every moment you choose belief over doubt, purpose over fear, and persistence over comfort, you are reshaping your future. You're not defined by your past, your failures, or the limitations others placed on you. You are defined by your willingness to rise, to try, to stretch beyond who you were yesterday. Transformation doesn't come in a flash of inspiration. It comes in the quiet, unseen moments when you act despite fear, when you believe despite uncertainty, and when you keep going despite resistance. You already have the seeds of greatness within you. The only question is, will you water them with bold action, consistent effort, and unshakable belief? The mindset of a true millionaire isn't about money. It's about mastering your inner world. It's about waking up every day and choosing growth over comfort, faith over fear, and purpose over ease. That's where success begins. That's where real power lives. And that's where your journey, your impact, and your legacy are waiting. Choose to step into it today, relentlessly, completely, without turning back.